everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Matcha, where we dive into the bittersweet moments of the teenage experience. Just like matcha, both may often be messy and imperfect, but that's what makes them beautiful in the end. With that, thank you all so much for tuning in, and for today's episode, I'm super excited because I'm going to be doing a Q&A. So I had a lot of people on Instagram just sending questions about what they wanted to know about me, like my personal life, and also just how the setup has been going for the podcast and editing and all of that. So I'm super excited. So I will be going over the questions that all of you guys sent me. So the first one was, I'm curious on why and how you started the podcast. Did you do online research? Did you take classes? Okay, so I knew I wanted to start a podcast, I think, at the end of 8th grade. I saw, a lot of people, in school starting podcasts, and at first, I thought I wanted to start, a podcasting club. But then I was like, wait, what if I just start my own podcast? So then I didn't really think much on it until, I think, the fall, again, of freshman year. And I really wanted to take action on this plan, and I was telling my parents about it, and they were very supportive of it. It did take a lot of research because I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know where I'd do it in my house. Fun fact, I actually filmed my podcast in my garage. So this all right here is just literally a wall that I converted in my garage, and the background is so not this part of what you see. So yeah. And in terms of researching, I did a lot on what website for editing I would have to use, what camera I should get. I actually started with just an iPhone 6 because I had a spare phone in my house. So I was like, you know what, let's be resourceful. Let's just use the iPhone 6. So I didn't really start with much. I didn't even have these lights, as many of you guys may remember. But yeah, and then in terms of why I wanted to start the podcast, I think I've always been a very expressive person, and I think I've been pretty good at putting myself out there, and I think having a podcast where I could amplify my perspective and my guest perspective was just the best way that I could, I guess, get all of our ideas out to people who may relate. Yeah, I definitely just wanted a space where everybody could feel seen, heard, valued, all the things of that sort, because I think growing up is such a hard and complex time, and even for me, I was and still am transitioning through high school, so it was hard, not only for me but for my peers. So I think by doing this podcast, it was pretty much my way of not only helping myself with the transition through growing up, but also helping all of you guys. So yeah. And then the next question is, how do you balance school, sports, passions, and the podcast? So this has definitely been one of my biggest concerns, and it's been really hard. Freshman year, it was decent. I think it definitely could have been worse, but I think in middle school I practiced putting a lot on my plate, whether it was tutoring kids, playing volleyball, being in just other extracurriculars, because I knew in high school I wanted to take on a lot, so I wanted to practice that in middle school. So it has been hard, finding time for myself, and it does get overwhelming a lot of the time. But yeah, I think the number one thing that I'd say in terms of balancing everything is just you guys may often think that there isn't enough time in the day to do everything, and I know that it seems like there isn't enough time, but honestly, when you just do it and you don't complain, then that's the best piece of advice I could give. Because if you're just procrastinating, complaining, not wanting to do it, you're in that mentality, or you're in that mindset of I don't want to do this, I'm not going to accomplish this. But for me, I always even when I'm in bed and I'm bed rotting and I don't want to do anything, I'm always just okay, let's just get out of bed. Let's do something. Let's be productive. I like making to-do lists. That's definitely what's helped me stay organized and balance everything. So yeah, I mean, if you guys ever procrastinate or aren't very good about taking the initiative to do things that you really want to do, just do it. That's my biggest piece. Next question is, what motivates you to push yourself in both school and sports? Okay, this one has definitely been a tough one, and I'm definitely still navigating this process. The number one thing that has helped me is just I don't like the feeling of being overwhelmed. So I think in terms of having a big list of things I have to do, going to practice and then doing school and all of that, studying for tests, things of that, I kind of, like I said before, like I just have to do it, and that's what motivates me, because when I get into the flow and the momentum of doing things, then that's my biggest motivator. And I think like the feeling of crossing things off your to-do list, or just accomplishing little things in your daily life, like really really helps me and pushes me to do my next task, because like if I can do one task, then I can do the next, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's definitely hard, like losing motivation, and it seems like losing motivation is really easy, but honestly, I think when you think of it that way, that's just how you run out of motivation. I don't, this kind of sounds dumb. I don't even know like how I have the motivation to do things, but like I said, like just doing those things and having the feeling of accomplishing things is what makes me feel, it gives me the confidence to do the other things that I have to do. Next question is, what's been the hardest part of staying on top of everything? That's a good one. Um, hmm. I know it's only gonna get harder and harder from here, but like I said, I get overwhelmed a lot. I I have those times where I doubt myself, and I'm like, okay, if I can't even do this, like how am I ever gonna do anything else? And I recently have just been really future tripping about a lot of things, and just, yeah, like I said, like doubting myself, and just being very apprehensive in terms of like what I have to do in the future, and the workload that I'm gonna have to, or the amount of things that are on my plate, and how I'm gonna like take on all those things. So honestly, the hardest part has just been me getting in my head, because it's hard to balance everything, but at the same time, when you have the proper mindset, it's not that hard, because you just do it. So yeah. What's one study habit or routine that works really well for you? The number one thing that works really, really well for me, and I've been literally doing this since middle school, is writing down, repeatedly writing down everything I learn. I like rewriting my notes after I study. So like I'll be in a lecture, and then I'll have those notes, but then I'll redo those notes to study so I can like retain it better. And then I also like teaching people. That's another big thing for me, because I'm definitely not the natural learner. Like I'm not naturally smart. So I have to really like work at getting good grades and all of that. Or I have to work at getting the grades that will satisfy me. So like if you read me something, I will not like understand it at first. I have to fully process it, whether that's by teaching you, whether that's by writing on the whiteboard, whether it's by rewriting my notes for 30 minutes every day, things like that just really help me retain it. And I used to struggle with that in middle school, because all my friends were so naturally smart and they didn't really study. And I'd study for like 5 hours, and then my friend wouldn't study at all, maybe like 10 minutes at most, and we'd get the same grade. So that was definitely a big confidence drop in middle school. And I didn't understand that it's okay to have different types of learning style, but I did eventually come to terms with that. So yeah, I think my study habits are definitely going to differ from all of yours, but the number one thing is just understanding that your study habits, your way of learning, your way of honestly doing everything is going to differ from person to person, and that's okay. This is a good question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, so in 5 years I'll be 20. I hopefully will be in college. I see myself going to a 4-year university. um I think my dream school would be like UCLA or UC Berkeley or UC San Diego. Honestly, I'd be happy with getting into any UC. Like that would be a dream. So I definitely see myself, hopefully, and I don't want to jinx myself, so let's knock on wood, but hopefully I'll see myself at a UC or just any 4-year university. I'll be happy with that. So I also see myself just again like working hard in college, but also just maintaining that work-life balance, and also hopefully I'll be able to find the time for myself and just to like hang out with friends, but also while maintaining my grades, getting internships, potentially getting a job, all things like that. Somebody said your podcast is tough. Thank you. Okay. This one is more specific towards being on varsity, but how was managing your responsibilities while being on VAR? That one was definitely hard, and like I said, freshman year is definitely the easiest, but for me, I think academically it was like fairly, it was hard. Like I obviously had to like put in work, especially because my school is trimester system. So Yeah, it did require like a lot of work, but I don't think any of the work was like super, super hard to the point where like I couldn't understand it at all. I think I definitely did struggle with biology, but I had to put in the work in order to understand it, which I'm totally fine with doing. But specifically during varsity season, my classes weren't really hard for that term. Like I didn't have any of my honors or accelerated classes except for Spanish, but I like Spanish, so it was honestly not that bad. So I got lucky with my schedule since my school is a trimester system and we switch classes every trimester. So it wasn't that bad. It was just more so the fact that it was my first trimester in high school. Not only was I navigating how high school works, I was also navigating being a varsity athlete. So I had to learn things like getting ready before games, mentally preparing myself, and being able to have that time management where I could do my homework before games and not dwell on things academically while being on the court, and just having my volleyball life and my school life completely separate, because if I didn't have them completely separate, then I'd just crash in both of them. So that was the number one thing, is just making sure that, and during volleyball, I was thinking strictly just about volleyball, how I can improve in volleyball, how I can support my teammates, all of that. And then in school, it's just like, how can I advance and excel in school and always strive to be better while managing being on varsity, having practice every day, having workouts 3 days a week, having games 3 days a week. So yeah, I think the number one thing was making sure that I keep my volleyball and personal life separate. But it was also good because I had teammates who were going through the same thing as me, and I had two other freshmen who were on my team, and we were all going through the same struggles of getting into the flow of high school together. I had older teammates who were sophomores, juniors, and seniors who definitely helped me out a ton along the way, and they all took the same classes I took. They were able to help me and like give me advice on homework, tests, how to study, and like manage your time before games, all of that. So I was very grateful and blessed to have that experience. Another question is, how long does it take to edit the videos? Okay, when I first started, I think editing is definitely one of the harder parts. Like I think when I was going into the process of starting a podcast, I did not realize how long editing was going to take. When I first started, since I have an old computer, the first episode literally took me 10 hours to edit. It was really bad because my computer is so old to the point where it can't handle the length of the videos. The processor just is too old. So it was really hard because my computer would literally freeze every 5 minutes. So I remember like it took me 1 hour just to do 8 minutes of an hour-long episode. So just imagine how long it would take me to do a full episode. And I remember like literally like crying, not crying, but I was getting like so frustrated on my couch, and I was so mad, and like my computer like wasn't working, but I had to just get through it and just make do with what I have. But also another problem with that was the website I was using was like I was editing on a website, so that was really hard because the website wasn't as good as the app. Actually, I don't even think that the company that I was editing under had an app. So then the second episode I switched to CapCut, which was definitely the biggest change for editing because it helped my workflow a lot better despite the fact that I have an old computer. So the freezing, my computer sounding like it was about to blow up was definitely still a problem, but the editing itself was much easier. So I think I got it down to like 3 to 5 hours, but each episode I gained more experience, and I think I trimmed it down I think I was able to trim the time that it took me to edit like 30 minutes each time. So it's definitely gotten better, and it seems like it's a lot, like 3 to 5 hours. It seems like it's a lot, and it is, but I think for me, I just break it down into like days. So I'll edit like 1 hour every day so that I could be done in like 3 to 5 days. I usually don't like loading up too much of editing in one day because then I feel just stressed and like I don't have time to do anything else. So definitely spacing it out has been good for me and not cramming. What's your favorite part about having this podcast and doing interviews? Okay, I love this question because I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and it was hard for me to come up with an answer because there's like so many amazing things and so many amazing opportunities that I've gained from having a podcast and meeting new people. But I think the number one thing, there's a bunch of things. I'm not gonna say number one, but a lot of people, just seeing the DMs from everybody has been really, really, it's meant the world to me. And at first I was really struggling because I didn't know if you guys would like the content that I put out. And I remember the first episode, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think anyone's gonna like the podcast. Like, I'm only gonna get like 5 views on YouTube. Not that that matters, but I was just thinking that like nobody would want to watch it. Nobody would like take me seriously because I'm a freshman. But there's definitely been a lot of very rewarding results, and I'm very, very grateful that all of you guys have been so supportive, because without your support I definitely wouldn't be able to keep pushing through. And it's been so amazing just getting to know more people through just conversing online, like DMing, all of that. It's also been really rewarding to meet the guests that I've been talking to. A lot of them, like, I've known of them, but I haven't really had like full-blown conversations with them, and it may seem awkward because like I haven't really talked to them that much before. But then when we actually come on the episode, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I love talking to you. I love getting to know more about you. I love learning from you and just like learning how you're able to like become so successful and overcome all your failures. So that's definitely been one of my favorite things about having a podcast and just doing all these interviews. So, but yeah, thank you so much for everybody's support. Like, it honestly, like, I think the first episode I was literally like tearing up because after all my hard work, I just saw like everybody DMing me and that saying that they appreciated how much I was doing this. And that's the whole point, because I want people to feel like they have a place where they can go to whenever they feel stressed. I want people to know that there are other people in the same situations as them, and they're not alone. That's the whole reason why I started this, and just seeing those DMs really just meant the world to me. So thank you so much. But how do you deal with stress? I don't think I have an exact answer to this, because I get stressed a lot, and I think I take a different approach every time. But my number one thing is just I try to talk to people when I'm stressed, because I've learned that when I bottle up my emotions, I tend to break. And it's not good, because then like I think about other things when I'm not supposed to be thinking about them. Like if I'm focusing on volleyball, if I'm supposed to be focusing on volleyball, like on the court, I'll like dwell on like other things or other situations that I have outside of volleyball. So again, just talking to people, having them like talk me through my worries, my stresses, all of that. And just for me, it's the best feeling ever is knowing that I'm not alone in anything that I'm going through. There's always going to be at least one person who's going through the same thing you're going through. So one thing I like to do is I low-key just like going on TikTok, and I'll like type out my problem. Like, for example, I can't think of an example, but I'll just think of my problem, I'll type it out, and then I see a whole like community of people commenting the same words that I've been feeling and worrying, and that just makes me feel so much better, because then it's like, wow, like I'm not alone. There are other people who are going through the same things as me, and maybe it isn't as bad as it seems, because there's so many other people going through it. So that's just definitely the number one way that I've dealt with stress. Another thing about dealing with stress is just knowing that you can't give up, because for me, even though I'm stressed, I still have to do it, because if I don't do it, I'm just going to be even more behind than I already feel. And it's going to seem like everything's going to keep piling up if I don't do the thing that I'm stressing about. My number one thing that I think about every day is doing things that my future self will thank me for, because I don't want to be stressed in the present. I don't want to be stressed in the future. So just doing things in the moment, even if it's hard, like just get through the pain, endure through it, because watch, like in the next 2 days, everything's going to get better, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Sophia, like thank you. Like I'm thanking myself right now, because 2 days ago, I just studied my butt off. I got through the test, and now I can just relax and have free time. I'm not going to worry about not having to do something, because I already did it. That's the whole thing, like just doing things that my future self will thank me for. So another one of my friends asked, if you ever face negativity from others, what do you do to overcome it? This has definitely been something that I've come a long way with. Before, I know like in elementary and middle school, if I ever heard someone like talking bad behind my back, or just like saying things about myself that made me think like, what am I doing wrong, I would try to change myself. And that's the worst way you can ever do it. Like, I think it's different when changing yourself for the better, but for a lot of things that I think people would say about me, like it wasn't even like my fault, and I would just try to be like a people pleaser and just like kiss up to them, which I think I've kind of, I'm still going, like, learning how to not do this, but I've, like, always been someone who, like, couldn't say no. I've always been someone who would try to change myself if somebody said something bad about me. Like, it's different. Like I said, it's different if I really, like, work on myself. Like, I'm fine with that. But in terms of doing, like, changing myself for a reason that I can't control, that was something I had to deal with a lot. But I think now I've just learned to not care so much about people's opinions. If somebody ever says something bad about you, here's what you have to do. Just think, like, is what this person's saying is valid? Like, is this something I have to work on, or is this something that, like I said, is just out of my control? And then when you are able to differentiate the difference between those two, then you could either shake it off or be like, okay, maybe I have to work on myself. Let me talk to my friends, get their perspective on this, make sure that they can hold me accountable for my actions. But if it's not your fault, then just shake it off. Like, don't worry about what other people say, and just live life the way you want to live it. It doesn't matter what other people are saying about you at the end of the day, because that's not their life. Your life isn't theirs. Your life is yours. It's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, guys. Like, I'm definitely not an expert at this or anything, but this is just what I've been thinking about a lot of the time. So I love this question, and this is actually from my friend, and I love her so much. So shout out to you. You know who you are. But the question is, when did you start having a love for matcha? I'm going to proudly say this, but I did not just start liking matcha for the trend. I've been liking matcha since elementary school, I think, like 4th or 5th grade. And at first it was like matcha boba, things like that. But then it became like making my own matcha, going to try more like authentic matcha places. So it's definitely been a while. I remember my first time having matcha was when I got this like TikTok drink. It was like the iced matcha latte with like 3 pumps of brown sugar syrup. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. But Starbucks matcha, I love Starbucks matcha, but it's very sugary, and it isn't like your authentic matcha, I guess. Like, no hate to the drink at all, because I love it so much. But I will say I do like authentic matcha a little bit more, and I just started getting into making my own matcha, which is definitely good, because then I can like control how sweet I want it. I can control what I put into it, and it's a healthier option too, which is good. But yeah, I had started having a love for matcha in elementary school, to answer your question. Okay, another question is, have you had a point in life where you wanted to quit volleyball, and what did you do to continue? That's a great question, and I don't know if this is going to be the best answer, but there have been times where I was just like in a volleyball slump, and I don't know what causes these slumps. I think for me, whenever I get in a slump, it's because I'm stressed, and like I'm not, like I said, not focusing solely on volleyball, and I'm not having fun when I'm playing, which is the biggest thing. The number one thing that makes me play good is having fun when playing, and when I have fun, I'm more confident when I play. I'm more aggressive when I play. Like, I'm not scared. I'm not hesitant to go for a ball. When I don't do that, and when I, like, let balls drop, when I just don't perform the way I want to perform, before, not as much anymore. I think it was in middle school. I think I was just worried about letting other people down, because I've played volleyball for a long time. I've played since I was in 3rd grade, and I think it's been a big part of who I am, and like a lot of people know how much I love volleyball. And at my old school and in middle school, there were just a lot of moments where I didn't know if I should continue. Like, I didn't know if it was worth my time, because not only like was I not having fun while I was playing, it was also affecting my time management outside of school. Not outside of school, outside of volleyball. Like, there would be times where I would be like, how am I supposed to continue playing volleyball if I can't even like finish this one homework assignment? But here's the thing with that. This is just how life goes. Like, there are going to be times where you have to make hard decisions. There are going to be times where you have to manage a million different things at once. But that's just life. Like, you just have to do it. And I still love volleyball, and I still have a passion for it. Like, I absolutely still have a passion for volleyball, and that's why I choose to continue to do it. But there have been times where I didn't know if it was worth my time because I was just getting so stressed, and I didn't know if maybe that was one of the biggest benefactors towards why I was stressed. But again, just when I was able to recognize that I had to separate my volleyball life from my personal life, that's when everything got better. So this question is, I've really been meaning to answer because I think a lot of people just think of the name of my podcast, Let's Talk Matcha, because I like matcha. But the question is, how did you brainstorm the name for the podcast? So I remember I was in LA when this happened. I think it was in November of 2024, so my freshman year. I was in LA on vacation for Thanksgiving break, and I knew that I wanted to start the podcast. So that whole break, I dedicated my time to researching the different aspects of podcasting. And the last thing I did was come up with the name. And this was actually, I remember I had just tried this matcha place in Santa Monica called La La Land, and I was drinking my matcha. We were on our way to Universal Studios, and I was talking to my parents, and I was like, so I saw this one essay on TikTok, because I love reading essays on TikTok, and it was talking about matcha, and it was, I don't know if it was a college essay or just like a personal narrative of some sort, but it was talking about the analogy of matcha and how when you make matcha, like the process of making matcha, it requires a lot of patience. Like when you first make it, I don't know if you guys know like how to make matcha, but you have to like whisk it, you have to pour in the hot water, you have to add in like the powder, all of that. But at first, like it's bumpy and there's like a lot of clumps, but you have to keep whisking through it in order to get to the final sweet result. So I was talking to them about it, and I was like, I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because I love matcha, and seeing somebody else who loves matcha talk about how matcha applies to the life and the principles of it was beautiful. And I was talking to them about how I loved how they thought of the bittersweetness of matcha. You're going to go through times in your life where it just feels like nothing's ever going to get better, and that's okay because that's life. But I really like that analogy. And then my parents were like, wait, what if you just call your podcast Let's Talk Matcha? And I was like, wait, like low key, like I should do that. So yeah, like pretty much the reason why I named my podcast Let's Talk Matcha is because I'm using it as an analogy to growing up. My podcast is Let's Talk Matcha is all about real life experiences that teenagers face, the challenges that we face growing up, whether it's the failures we face, whether it's the successes that we go through. Life isn't always sweet. Matcha isn't always sweet, and that's okay. And I know, like, I don't know if, like, a lot of you guys can relate to this. The title is just something that ties a lot of my personal values, experiences, and interests into one. And I think not only does it resonate with the matcha community, I think the overall meaning of why I named it Let's Talk Matcha really could resonate with a lot of you guys, because now you know that I'm not talking about just matcha. Like, I'm actually talking about, like, real life experiences and all things of that sort. So yeah. So this next question is from one of my really good friends who's actually a content creator herself. She does a lot of get ready with me and like lifestyle videos on TikTok. You guys should definitely check her out. Her user is Natalia GRWMS. But yeah, definitely check her out. I literally love her videos so much. She is so relatable, and I think you guys would definitely love watching her content. So her question was, have you thought about what you want to do out of high school, even though you are still in the summer before your sophomore year, and what has helped you have an idea of what you'd want to do? So I think I want to go into like business economics type. I definitely want to go into something more leadership, more public speaking based. I'm not really a STEM person, so I don't think I'd want to go into like the medical field or something in like science. I love it, but it's not really what I'm more passionate in. I think I've definitely been more of like an English history person. I'm like fairly good at math, but like it doesn't come as natural as like English and history. But the thing about business and like economics that I really like is just the fact that I'd be interacting with a lot of people, and I've always liked interacting with people and just like putting myself out there. So I think, I don't know like exactly what I'd want to do in business or economics, but I just know like that's what I'd want to major in, because I've always been interested in like leadership and public speaking, and I'm actually taking a public speaking class right now at my local community college, and it's showed me a lot of like different public speaking techniques and devices that are used, and I've genuinely like taken an interest in it, and I think that it's definitely a skill set that I'd want to continue to use in my future, and that I'd definitely be continuing to use in my future. Shout out to my professor because he's the best. I love your class. Thank you so much. But yeah, so although I don't have a set career, like a set role that I'd want to be, I definitely want to go into like business, or yeah, I definitely want to go into business. When do you find the time to edit your podcast and make videos? So, like I said before, I try to do like a little bit every day, but it's really hard because during the school year, and I don't even know how I'm gonna do this year, because my whole like release date is based on my volleyball season and like whether or not I have a tournament that weekend, because I like to dedicate my weekends to editing, but if I have tournaments, then obviously I can't do that. So, and each year like the tournament schedules do change, so my release date's probably gonna change like every year, but that's okay. How I actually like find the time to do it, I don't prioritize my podcast over school because school always comes first. But so I'll do all my homework, and then even if I feel tired, I still think editing my podcast is more like therapeutic, and it doesn't feel like as much of a chore because I actually like doing it. It's a lot of like problem solving and critical thinking. Like if there's a lot of problem solving that goes into editing, and like even though that does seem like a lot, it's very, very comforting and relaxing to me. So I'll literally just like edit in bed. I'll do it before I go to sleep. I'll do it on the weekends. I'll do it for 30 minutes before I go hang out with my friends. I'll do it in the car on the way to volleyball tournaments in like Reno and like out of state ones. I'll do it. I was editing in the airport one time. I literally like find time to edit whenever I just don't want to like get behind, so I just do it, and it doesn't really matter where I am as long as I like have my computer and stuff. But I think it will definitely get harder in the future as I'm in more harder classes, and I'm still a little bit scared on how I'm gonna do it. But I think I'll be okay. Like I think I'm trying to like reassure myself that if I could do it freshman year while balancing an internship, hard classes, and all things like that, and volleyball, that's a big one in volleyball. If I could balance editing while doing that, then I can do it. Like, what's the difference in the other years other than having harder classes, you know? But yeah. The next question is, how do you find time for friends and yourself? That's another big one because it seems like I think it seems like from an outside perspective, I feel like it seems like a lot to manage. And don't get me wrong, it is a lot. Yeah, but it may seem hard like to find time for yourself and for your friends, but I think like if you really want to make time for it, you will. I used to be a victim of saying this, and I talked about this in my previous episodes, but saying like, oh, I'm too busy to do this, like I can't hang out with you, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't spend time like just being alone, things like that. But what I realized is that like me saying that just restricted myself even more. And although there are times where I genuinely like can't hang out with somebody, or I can't do something because I really have to do it, like I get like that's fine. Like there are times like that, but there are also times where I just unnecessarily make myself do work when I could be doing something that will just alleviate a bit of the stress. So I think now that it's summer, I've been a bit better about finding time for myself and finding time for my friends. So like if I have something to do and I know that I have enough time to do it, I'll be like, okay, like tonight let me just watch a movie, let me FaceTime my friends. But it's not something that I do every day because I do have other things to do, like editing. I have homework for my public speaking class. I have all things like that. So it's just about knowing when you can or can't do something and just making those decisions and having that personal or like self-autonomy. So if you guys ever feel like you generally can't hang out with your friends, or you can't make time for yourself, and this feels like a constant feeling, then I think that's when you really need to recognize like, wait, maybe I need to take something off my plate. Maybe I need to reshift my scheduling and try to have better time management. And then tips for wanting to study better. I think my number one thing for studying is just making sure not to cram the night before. I used to be very adamant on studying the night before, like in like 6th and 7th grade, because I thought that if I space it out, I'd forget everything. But really, that's not the case, because for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys could relate to this, the more you do it, the more you're gonna remember. And you can't do everything in one night. That's low key impossible to try to fit everything in. And if you do, you're not gonna get enough repetition. You're not gonna do enough practice problems. You're not gonna familiarize yourself with the information enough. You're more so just passively studying if you're doing it the night before, because you're not actually, like, it's kind of like you're just putting in half effort if you do the night before. Or I think it's just better to space it out. And when I started doing that, my test scores improved a lot. And actually, my friend told me to do this, because she was like, yeah, like, I know it may seem like you're gonna forget everything, but you're not. And when she told me that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And as soon as I did that in, I want to say 6th grade, for math specifically, as soon as I did that, my test scores improved. So yeah. And then actually, like, being motivated to study, I think I like switching up where I study. So sometimes I'll study in my room, sometimes I'll study at a cafe, sometimes I'll study downstairs. And then also just figuring out, like, do you like studying with background noise? Do you like studying with music? Do you like studying with people talking? Or do you like it completely silent? So also just figuring out, like, the type of student you are and the different study methods that work best for you is what I recommend. So this next one is, what is your favorite matcha flavor? So recently, I've been getting into banana matcha. I love it so much. I like banana matcha, I like ube matcha, and then I like regular matcha. So yeah, those are my top 3 favorite matcha flavors. And then this next question is, how do you find people to interview? Are they always people you know already? So I think it genuinely, like, this varies. At first, I only got people that I, like, really knew and, like, could have conversations with, because I was just starting the podcast up and I didn't really know what type of guests to get and who to actually bring on. So I brought people who I was more comfortable with, people who could talk about experiences that other teenagers could relate to, things like that. And then I think just overall, I want people on who, like, genuinely have good intentions. They genuinely, like, want the best for themselves and the community. Just very positive people who want to do good and can also talk about experiences that they faced that they think other teenagers can relate to. So I try to think of just topics that I think teenagers could relate to, and then from there I get a guest. Or, like, sometimes I'll do guests first who I just, like, really want on, and then I'll talk to them about, like, what topics do you think that you want to talk about that are prevalent to teenagers. So that's my process. And then how do you promote your podcast? I'm definitely not an expert at this, but I try to, like, post consistently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And sometimes I can't post consistently or when I don't post consistently, it's because I need time for myself. And I think doing that, like, I do really want to post consistently, but then I also need to hold myself accountable and be like, okay, maybe I just need to give myself 1 week of not promoting, and it's not gonna make or break the podcast, you know. So sometimes I will just, like, take those breaks and just focus on myself and take that time to focus on, like, what type of content I want to produce without actually, like, putting stuff out. So if I'm ever not posting, that's why, because I need a break. But yeah, I think what's worked best for me is promoting on Instagram, just because people can actually, like, repost the content. And at first I thought it would work best on TikTok, because people get viral, like, really easy on TikTok. But for me, like, getting viral, or at least getting, like, more than 100 views on TikTok has been so hard. And I don't know if I'm, like, shadow banned or, like, whatever it's called, but for some reason my luck hasn't been as good on TikTok as it has been on Instagram. So, and YouTube Shorts has also done good as well. I think definitely YouTube Shorts and Instagram have been the best ways for me to promote. And then also the biggest thing is having my friends and just people I know repost it. And I'm super grateful for all of you guys who do that, because it really does help a lot, and just getting more people to see the podcast. That's definitely been really helpful. So thank you so much. This next one is, how do you prepare before recording an episode? I like, again, like, just thinking about the guests, what topic I want to do. I also have to come up with the questions before the episode, just so I can facilitate the episode more easily. And so I'm not, like, blanking on, like, what to say. So I always like having note cards on what I want to ask the person. And then I'll send them the questions to see if they're good with them. And also if they want me to ask them anything else. I also like to think of how I'm going to introduce the person and how I'm going to end the episode. I think those are really big things. And then for the actual setup, I have to make sure that all my mics are charged. I have to make sure that the camera batteries are good. Since now I have a camera, I have to make sure to charge the batteries beforehand. And sometimes if I don't, camera battery or mic battery will die. And that's happened before, and it just makes it a lot harder. So I always try my best to get everything set up beforehand so I don't have to put more work on myself. Because it's also more editing if the mic dies, because then you have to figure out like where the mic died, and then you have to like cut that out or try to like amplify the voice more. So what's something surprising you've learned since starting the podcast? I learned that I overestimate the time it takes me to do something. Like before, I used to be like, okay, I'm gonna edit the episode like 3 weeks before releases, and then I realized like just doing that made me spend even more time on it because I had that mentality that it would take so long. And now since it's summer, I don't have like as much work. Now, like I'll literally just edit like a week before releasing the episode, and I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 days, and I'm gonna set a goal for myself. I'm gonna try to get this done in 2 days. And I will literally just sit at my computer for like 3 hours straight. And I know this kind of goes against the whole like spacing things out, but another thing to recognize is also setting goals for yourself and then working towards that. And if you don't hit it, then you don't hit it. So for me, like I said, like I'll set a goal for myself. I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna get editing done in 3 days, 3 days max, because I know that I have to release the episode in a week. So I have to do it in these 3 days. So I'll spend like 2 hours each day editing, and then I'll be done. But then, during the school year, I'd be like, okay, I have 3 weeks to edit. I'm going to space this out. But then I'd like kind of slack off and not do it because I had so much time. So I honestly get editing done quicker when I'm on like a harder deadline, if that makes sense. So that's what I've learned about the overall process of podcasting. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking of starting a podcast? I think the number one thing is just researching on what you want to talk about and who your target audience is going to be. Because the thing about podcasting is that it's not going to be catered towards everyone, and it's okay to like have a niche audience. It's okay that not everybody's going to like your podcast. Like that's literally normal. And at first I was like, okay, how can I get as many people as possible to like my podcast? And it's okay to think that, but at the same time, you also have to recognize that just talk about the things that you want to talk about, and as long as they're not controversial, as long as there's nothing wrong with what you're talking about, the people who will like your podcast will find their way to it. And for me, like I'm not really overly worried about like getting viral or anything like that. Like I genuinely just want the people who are also worried about growing up and the complexities that come with that to hear my podcast. I want them, again, to know that they're not in this alone. And I think just having those loyal viewers who will always come back is worth more than any amount of subscribers or likes or followers. So just not being too hard on yourself. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get that many views at first, because what I've noticed for me is that although like I'm not like a famous podcaster or anything, but I do have a high viewer retention rate where it's like the same amount of people are coming back to every episode because they genuinely enjoy what I'm talking about. That's the most important thing that I'd say if you're thinking of starting a podcast. Like don't be worried about the views at first, because podcasting is definitely not a linear process, and there are going to be times where one episode flunks. There are going to be some times where one episode does better than the other, but it's just about figuring out what you want to talk about and how you can best display that to your audience. So, yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot of questions about how I balance the podcast along with school, sports, and extracurriculars. So I kind of just want to go through like my daily schedule with that. So it depends, because if I'm in high school season, it's a lot harder because I practice every day for like 2 or 3 hours, and then if I don't have practice, I have a game. So that's why I like to spend my time editing on weekends. And then for my internship, I just like trying to get as much work done before I actually have a lot to do in school. So the good thing about my school is that we have these like agendas that are put out every week. So literally for my podcast, for my internship, for school, I will always try to do the work that I can do in advance, because that will better set me up for the future. It will not make me feel as stressed, and I'll have more time to do my other extracurriculars. So yeah, just the number one thing I'd say for that is like if you can do it in advance, then just do it. Like put more work on yourself for one day, because that work that you do in one day would like literally make you feel better for the next 4 days, you know. So yeah, I think that wraps up the Q&A. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'm really happy that I was able to do a more lighthearted episode like this, where not only was it more free flow, but also you guys could get to know me better, and also just ask any of the questions that you guys were curious about. And if you guys ever have any more questions or just want to chat with me, like feel free to DM me, or if you know me like in person, like literally talk to me about anything at any time. Like I literally do not care. I love when I'm able to meet new people and talk about and just like have those deep conversations with people. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next coming episodes. Bye.